Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to continue a little bit more about some of the um, relationship paradigms I briefly encountered in my life in US. Because if you are in a twin flame journey or in a divine counterpart journey, many of us experience these either brief relationships or long term relationships where some toxic paradigms can manifest within the relationship. And those relationships are generally all can be termed as a karmic relationship, because karma is nothing but what you do, it's based on what you're doing. So, any relationship that is called a karmic relationship has been generated with someone as a result of what we did with them, either in this life or in a previous lifetime. We might have had some karma that was generated, which we have come in this lifetime to clear with them or work through with them, or we have no past life karma with these people, but in this current life we were supposed to be with these people because they were supposed to teach us certain things we need for the next level of our journey in life. Now, that's why karma is something related to our past, something related to the present, and something that will be making sense to us after we have lived a experience with someone, but in the future. So for me, that's how I understood that I was in a twin flame journey based on all the past relationships that I experienced, all of which, if I hadn't experienced those relationships, learned something from those relationships, I wouldn't have been given the information about the twin flame journey. And when I got the information about the twin flame journey, it started making sense why these previous relationships had existed. So like that, many of us, when we are heartbroken, when we are disappointed in love, when we have been lied, cheated, betrayed, someone left us and went with someone else, someone manipulated us in order to gain sex or sexual favors from us, someone was taking advantage of our money. All these are societal paradigms that have been existing on earth for a long time. So you have to learn something based on these social paradigms, societal paradigms, some of which, because if you are a twin flame, you're part of the process of shifting some perspectives about certain things that are unfair in society, changing certain paradigms which shouldn't exist in life, or if it exists, we should have a way to keep it in check so that people don't get betrayed, lied, cheated in such a level that they commit suicide, or they become so depressed that they become dysfunctional. All these things we have to heal, and the only way we can heal those things, if someone wants who their future purpose is, say, to become a healer, or their future purpose is to become a someone who teaches people how to forgive, then you have to go through some difficult paradigms in relationships, that without those relationships and darkness in those relationships, you can't understand the light behind or the purpose behind why you experience that darkness. So with me, that's why this happened, that repeatedly I kept attracting some kind of narcissistic patterns and selfish patterns or manipulative patterns in men, which in general actually women do more than men. Women are more narcissistic, women are more selfish and self-involved sometimes in the modern world, especially if women, generations of women have been not taken care of by men, they turn like this. But nowadays, opposite flip has happened, where the men have started becoming narcissistic, men have started becoming selfish, men are self-involved, and the women who aren't narcissistic, selfish, or self-involved, they get attracted to such men, or are it's kind of like opposite polarities attracting each other. Opposite also happens. So it depends on what was the narcissistic pattern in your own family, which is getting reflected in the journey with another person. So in my family, if my dad was more voluble about certain things, my mom was very quiet. So I attracted two boyfriends, where one boyfriend was very voluble about many things and another boyfriend was very quiet. So one was like my mom, in mom who was the quieter one, and one boyfriend was like that, and one who was the voluble one was like my dad. So both of them came to teach me how my parents were with me, things that I wouldn't realize until I mature a little bit. When you are growing up as a child, as a teen, even if you had a difficult life with your parents, or moderately difficult life, or minorly difficult life, if there was some wound present in that, or some abnormalcy present in your life when you were growing up, if you want to become a good lover in the future, if you want to become a good parent in the future, if you want to become a good spouse in the future, first you have to heal some of those wounds. If you were having a neglectful childhood where your parents didn't pay attention to you, you will constantly seek that love from a partner, right? So when we are seeking that love from a partner, though, because if your parents were abusive to you in milder ways or major ways, what will happen is you will attract a abusive partner to you first, or a partner who will not respect you for who you are, or not understand you for who you are, and repeat the same patterns that your parents also did with you when you were growing up, or other families who were raising you, they were doing to you. Because every one of us has a different lives. Some have life with family, some have had lives with family and friends, some have had social large joint families in which they have lived. So everyone has had a different childhood experience, different early adulthood experience, that keeps shaping their future adulthood experiences. And if in the past experiences we just don't acknowledge that, we just say and think that everything was fine in our life, even if you think everything was rosy and fine, if actually something was missing in your past life, in the past of your this life, or even in your past life with someone in another lifetime, everything will show up in the twin flame journey as the part of inner healing. Everything will show up in even the ascension journey as a part of healing from certain paradigms that are toxic and that needs changing or shifting. So because of that, when the boyfriend was very angry every time, something was communicated to him that, okay, this sexual boundary was not something I liked, or I want, he would promise me that we will meet at say 6 o'clock, and instead of coming at 6 o'clock, he doesn't come until 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So naturally I will be upset. Or if I'm not upset, I would be more upset if I find out that he has gone and he was hanging out with his friends and playing pool with them. Why? Because in him there was an unhealed wound, and this I understood later on about him. So the more you mature, the more you evolve from your relationship, when you are in the initial phase of a relationship breakup, or a relationship has ended for you, at that time it is natural for all of us to only see the bad things in the relationship that happened, that we were fighting, that we were not nice to each other, we were always shouting at each other if conflicts were arising. These are the things we will look at, and that is the first step of healing from what happened in the past. If you want to heal from the past, if you are stuck in the past, then you will keep repeating and reminiscing about the memory without understanding what was going on with it. But if you're understanding what was going on with it, when you remember it, you will also start gaining clarity about it. So first step was, I gained clarity that this was a toxic relationship, I have to leave. So eventually, slowly, we both felt like that about the relationship. So we were both trying to leave the relationship. We were not able to leave the relationship because our pull towards each other was very strong. This is also very similar to a twin flame relationship. But in both the twin flame or a false twin flame or any strong karmic relationship, the reason why you are not able to pull away from the relationship, or it takes you many years to get away from those relationships, emotional energy or any other karmic energy of the relationship, is because those people were in our past life or in this life meant to awaken something in us. They were meant to show us something about us, show us something about our life, show us something about growing and evolving in relationships, that if we don't have those difficult relationships, I won't realize. So at that time, because my parents didn't care so much about me, I also didn't used to care so much about my health. And because I didn't used to care so much about my health, When I initially moved to US, I was very mindless, and what will happen, like when you are a immature child, say your parents say no to you, that don't eat pizza, don't eat ice cream, don't eat unhealthy food, don't eat Pepsi. All these things were restricted for me as a child, because even though they were neglectful in emotional ways, they were very careful in feeding me some good things. So the good things that they have fed, or they were at least careful in not feeding me bad food, because of which I was relatively healthy. But I did have some stress in my life, because of which I was a fat child after teen years. So though I was a fat child, when I went to US, because I was little, my mom had also died. My mom died when I was 20. I went to US when I was 22. 1 year after my graduation, I left for US. So in those years, I was still grieving about my mother, because it had only been 2 years since she died. And when you are living in a foreign country, you are also lost that what to do about adulthood experiences, because Indian children are sheltered also at home a lot. Most Indian children, unless you came from a very difficult family life, or very abusive or poor family life, most Indian children in the average middle class to higher middle class and rich people have a sheltered existence. We live with family. Family does many things for us. We don't have to earn money. We are not thinking about monetary things, emotional things, nothing. We have a stable foundation in our family life, relatively stable. If there were conflicts in your family, that will destabilize you, and which is what was there in my family. There were some conflicts going on which was destabilizing me, but still I was lucky in the sense that I wasn't having a highly abusive childhood or highly neglectful childhood. It was mildly abusive, mildly neglectful. But neglectful was what? That emotionally we would never speak to each other about anything. So my parents never knew about anything going on in my life, and which continued. If my mom had not died, it would still have likely continued that way. But if my mom had not died, some things could have shifted a little bit differently for me. But the main thing was this lack of speaking with each other, engaging with each other, communicating with each other, which was missing in my family life. And as a consequence of it, now I understand what was the consequence. I speak better, I communicate better, I understand people even when they are not speaking. That is my intuitive guidance about people. So I learn many things from people via the minimal things they say. They don't have to say much words to me for me to really understand how they are feeling about me, what they are doing or thinking about in the deeper sense. Those things, some of those things I gauge easily. The things that I don't gauge easily about someone's personality, if they are too hiding in nature, too secretive in nature, those people I have to ask what they are thinking. Because there are some people who are very twisted, who are not that open, who are not that authentic, and they will twist things so badly that from them you will not get the right messages about relationships. So those are more difficult relationships. In fact, my first boyfriend, even though he was toxic in the verbal sense, that we are verbally always having a conflict or having a life outlook where we want to go in two different directions, it was still a authentic relationship, because authentically, at least, when I'm saying something that is making him feel bad about it, he is at least protesting it and fighting about it. Authentically, he's showing me that this is not what I like when you're saying these things to me. Or if I said something, he's hurting about it, he shuts down. And after 2-3 days, he will have this outburst, because that was how our relationship was. So partly he was like my mom, he would shut down, but partly he was a man like my dad. So he would, both of these boyfriends actually were like that. They were half my mother like, half my father like. So the father like quality was that my mother was always quiet, never speaking up for anything that was going wrong in her life. If she felt something is unfair, she would maybe speak one time, very rarely though. Out of like, if 100 things are going wrong or 10 things have gone wrong in her life, she will only talk about the very minor one thing, and that too, if the problem didn't get resolved, she just shut down and never communicated. And she was very quiet and dutiful with whatever she was doing. She was a dutiful mom, dutiful wife, but she was not a communicative one, because she shut down emotionally, because she couldn't handle the level of or kind of weird abuse that was going on with her. So because she was like that, and the consequences I understand. That's why when people shut down, so when he was shutting down, I understand why this boyfriend is shutting down, but he has to still speak up about. I can understand that, okay, I spoke and said something that made you shut down and made you feel something, but I can't understand why you're feeling that too deeply also, unless you reveal to me what made you feel vulnerable enough to shout at me about something that if we work together, it might cause our relationship to go better. If I have to tell my boundary, right? If a guy is wanting, in my previous video also I said that, if he is wanting second base, third base, fourth base, deeper sexual connection and contact with me, but I don't want that sexual contact with him. I just want to keep it at the hand holding level or kissing level. That is my boundary, and I have communicated that this is the boundary. That is the boundary where in India so many Indians do even now when they are dating, right? Before marriage, people don't sleep with each other. Very rarely people sleep with each other in India, and in our highly populated country, it is needed in India to do that. But in US, the freedom is there that everyone has sex after they are adults. The consenting sex is allowed in US, so many people engage in consensual sex. So I had no problem in him if he wanted only consensual sex with someone. It was mentioned when we were having those fights related to sex that you can have that consensual sex with someone, but then we can't be boyfriend girlfriend. I don't want that kind of a relationship. Two people, if they are going in a relationship, they should have a same outlook in the relationship they are going in. And for me at that time, not having sex before marriage was important. But he kept breaching the boundary a little bit. And why was he pushing the boundary? He wanted to test me, how serious I am. He couldn't control his body for the sexual pull he was feeling, because our sexual intensity was very high. So he couldn't control that. He didn't want to control that. See, it's not that he couldn't control. He did control. I'm not saying he didn't control absolutely. Some days he did. But some days he didn't want to. He wanted to continue pushing that, because for him sex had become an addiction. And I understood about his sex addiction later on, after I had separated from him. Then I found out whatever he was doing, where sex had become an addiction. He was calling all these call center women and becoming addicted to all those things as well. So was it me that was just causing this sexual thing? No, his own inner unhealed wounds was causing him to become more sexual. But when you are meeting a person who is very opposite of you, you have a chance of using, both of you can balance each other and become in the middle. That is how a true relationships works. That if you are getting too intense about sexuality, and the other person is not wanting sexuality or understands what is the limitation of sexual boundaries that they want to hold in the relationship, they both can. And he was breaching my boundaries, right? He was pushing it sometimes to go to second base, third base, right? So when he is doing all that at that time, sometimes I was allowing it because I loved him, I did care for him. And this is what many women do, or many men also do sometimes in relationships. When the man is less comfortable with breaching a sexual boundary, they will breach the boundary with the person who they love deeply, or they feel emotionally and sexually very connected with. So it's very natural to become engaged and get involved in that sex act. But if that act was not something in alignment with your morals, or something in alignment with what you envision for your life, you will create a conflict inside of you. So can you be a happy person in a relationship if a conflict has arisen, where your respect of sex and sexual boundaries are very different from what they want? And many men who watch porn get addicted to all the darkness related to sex. They do not understand what is pure sex, sacred sex. So, and also some women have started doing it recently, in recent decades and years. So it's important to understand that if you are trapped in a relationship, or in a relationship where you want sacred sex, you want sex that is mutual, consensual and respectful and loving, but the other person is only viewing you as a sexual object or a sexual desire, or viewing you as a sexual potential, and that's it, there's nothing else in the relationship, it's a very uncomfortable and disrespectful relationship for those who want more than sex, who want something else to develop first in the relationship. That's why it fell apart. So while it was falling apart, while we were having these conflicts, those conflicts were necessary in that relationship, so that both of us realized this is not going in a good direction, right? Both of us realized that, and when both of us are realizing it, we were staying away from each other. We had gaps of 1 year, 6 months, 1 month, like that, different gaps. Sometimes we broke up for 1 month, but then we were lonely, we missed each other, which also happens in deep emotional connection based relationships, where you will miss each other. Or if you don't have any active social life, then also whoever was your boyfriend, you want to be with the devil, you know, so you would come back together. But and in those moments, sometimes after a 1 year gap, if I want to just meet him as a friend, I'm like, let's just meet him, let's just meet as a friend. We will just watch a movie together, or we will just converse together on a comedy show we are watching. That's all we will do. Or we will just take a drive, and because we shared a car, we would take that car jointly and we would go and take a drive somewhere. That much level I wanted. But invariably, because there was a sexual pull and a sexual karma between us, where we both were meant to learn something from each other, and I don't know what he learned from it, but I kept learning certain things from the relationship. So first I kept understanding that I do not want to breach my boundary, even though the sexual intensity with him is high. Second thing is, I wanted more deeper connection first before I want to engage in sex with anyone. Thirdly, if nasty sex is happening, I am uncomfortable, so I do not want to be with men who want some nasty sexual experiences where it's only about just the exploration of the body and nothing else. For me, that is very nasty. Some people, for them it is okay, but I am not that level girl. So I'm a little prudish, I'm a little old fashioned, I'm a little more Indian than, even though I was living in America. But there are men who do that. There are many of my friends who dated men, who didn't sleep with the men, who slept with the men only after marriage, who were living in America too. There were women like that also, and there were women like other friends also who did sleep with the men, and who had a live-in relationship for a year or two before they got married. Both types of Indians were there. It's just that he was that other type who wanted to live in with someone or explore sex with someone. I was someone who didn't want to do that first, right? So that clash was happening, but the fights, even we wanted to stay platonic friends, was not happening, because maybe in a past life we were spouses with each other. That sexual chemistry was still there in this life, but we had to reject that as a part of next things to unfold in our life, because if we want, if whatever life he wants, he has a life purpose. Now he has to wake up to that life purpose eventually. When he will wake up to that life purpose, that life is simply not about sex or sexual addiction, that's when he will wake up to his next purpose in life. But until then, he might still get stuck in many addictive patterns, many toxic patterns, which showed up when he did marry some Indian girl. Before that, he dated a non-Indian girl. He did all these things because as soon as the relationship ended, finally, he was, or even in the temporary 1-2 years of gaps, he was dating another person. And he dated another person, he didn't like that, he wanted to get back also together with me one time. But even though he wanted to get back together with me, at that time, by then I had realized my value. I had taken all the things that he said that seemed very toxic to me and hurtful to me while I was in the relationship with him. In those times, I also learned to use those words as a motivator to change myself. So when I was a very fat, chubby girl who didn't take care of her health, now I was taking care of my health. When I was a very, initially when I went to US, even though I went there for studying, for me it was just a way of leaving my family life, which was very distressful, and my mom had died. So I knew that if I stayed in this family, something instinctively told me that staying here wasn't the right choice. So I naturally gravitated towards thinking about moving outside India. Otherwise, I was not thinking only, I was not like other Indian students who are thinking that I want to make money, or I have ambitious parents who want the girl child or boy child to, they will give you money that, they'll give all their hard earnings to their children so that a bright future unfolds for their child. My dad was never like that. So my dad had told me that if you don't get free education, you cannot go there. And so I had applied only if I get scholarship I will go, if I don't get scholarship I won't go. So when I got scholarship I went, and I studied in the US system using US scholarship and tuition waiver. But while studying, because I was not as good as other people, I also failed at some levels. And but while failing, I was also learning what was right for me at the work life also. So these are the things I was developing in myself when I broke off with this boyfriend. I failed my prelims partly because I was having relationship conflict, partly because I was not that great as a researcher. So instead of doing a PhD, I ended up doing only a master's. But after doing a master's, the way my personality is, it aligned with caretaking things. So first caretaking thing I did was I went and worked in a preschool for a while. While I was working in a preschool, I also did my licensing exams for becoming a pharmacist in US. So once I became a pharmacist in US, I started working in a pharmacy. So one year I was an intern, and then after that in a pharmacy I was a pharmacist. So all these licensing things I was doing, I was changing myself, I was becoming more and more career oriented. Otherwise, before I became this career oriented girl, I was a very family oriented girl. If my marriage had happened to this boyfriend or any other guy, if my family had decided go marry this guy today, and they told me, and I was, when I was failing my exams at that point, if any guy had proposed to me, or even before failing, just because I'm lonely, if someone had proposed to me, I would have married them. But because I didn't get that help, so see, the conflict with this boyfriend was beneficial for me in which way? In me becoming an independent woman, in me becoming a woman who earns for herself, in me becoming more and more sure about what kind of work life also I like to do. Otherwise, I would have been in a relationship, and because my mother had a relationship where she didn't have financial independence, I could have repeated her pattern again, not having that much financial independence. But this conflict ridden boy showed me that career is also important, because of him I partly failed the exam, and because of him only I partly realized that even though I failed that exam where I could have done PhD, now I have the opportunity to do something else. I partly failed the relationship also, right, because I was breaking up. So these two things I failed, but I understood more about myself. So I went into the next level of my life journey after understanding why I have failed in whatever was happening, in both ways, in studies also, and in about pursuing career also, and in about being good in a relationship also. And for me at that time I realized men are looking for beautiful women, they don't like chubby women. That I realized a long time back only, because some of my cousins who are thinner, some of my cousins who are more fashionable, both my one side of the family I had thinner cousins, fairer cousins, competent cousins, they got married immediately. Other side of the family I had cousins who were very elegant looking, who were very fashionable, and because they were a little affluent family, so they always were up to date in fashion and everything, they also got married very easily. Why? Because men are attracted first to the looks of a woman. So I realized that if I want to become more better in attracting some good quality guys, I have to also become good in looks. So I did focus in my looks, I did focus a little bit in my on my health, and I slowly went from a 75 kg 72 kg girl to a 60 kg 65 kg girl. And it took me a while from 75 kg to 65. Actually from 75 I had actually, first I was, when I left India I was around 70 kgs. But when I went to US, and initially 2-3 years, stress from failing, stress from boyfriend, stress from just surviving, because there was a 1 year phase when I didn't have a good paying job, or 5-6 months of no job. So in those times when I didn't have money to I knew that if I don't get a job I will not be able to survive. here in this country, and I was in this questioning phase. Should I live in US? Should I leave in US? Go back to India with just a master's. But I didn't want to go back to India because I again knew in India how my life is with my parents, or rather my parent and brother, because one of my parents had died. So I had to choose financial independence because I didn't want a repeat of my mother's life. Or so when I chose professional life, and while I was choosing the professional life, I was also at the time initial phases of that professional life, I gained weight and I became like 78 kgs or something. So from 78 kgs, another 2-3 years it took me to become 65 kgs. Slowly, by going 2 hours to the gym, by eating right food, I cut down eating burgers, I cut down eating Pepsi, I cut down eating pizza. All these things I had cut down for 3-4 years, or even if I would eat them, it would be earlier if I was eating burgers 2-3, and I was eating vegetable burgers or chicken burgers, but they were still hormone laced, chemical laced. So whatever the reason was, I had started gaining a lot of weight, and had gained 5, 6, 7, about 6 to 8 kgs more than what I was when I was in India. And because of the 6 to 8 kg weight gain in 3 years, 4 years time, it took me another 4 years to cut down from the exact 6 kgs I had to get down, and then another even 70 kgs was not ideal weight for my height. So for me the ideal weight was around 60 kgs. So I always targeted towards going to 60, but I stayed usually around 65 kgs was the 63, up to 63 is when I have managed to bring down my weight. Otherwise, since teen years, I have been a 70 kg range person in weight, right? Because that is my default metabolic state. Now also, if I don't exercise, currently also my weight is like that, somewhere between 67 kgs or 68 kgs. And so 72 is when I am completely unhealthy and not exercising at all. If I'm exercising a little bit, I am around 67 now. If I don't exercise, I am around 67 if I am doing good portion control of the food. But if I also do portion control and exercise, I can get to about 65 to 63 kgs. That is the range I realized eventually over the years, that is the range where my body likes to stick around. And I can get maybe a 260 kg range also, but that is pushing my BMI to do something which I have realized I shouldn't do. That about health I will talk later in another video maybe. But all these things that I'm doing, thinking right now, what I'm talking about, these are the things I was focusing my life on. Working like this, I was a pharmacist, so that's why also I got more into healthcare, about right ways of doing healthcare. I was counseling patients also when their BMI is higher, so obviously I was taking care of my BMI also. So all these things were developing in me. But while all these things are developing in me, while many things are happening in the background, what is happening to an Indian girl when she hits like 25 years, 27 years, always family wants to pressure you to get married. So my family pressured me to get married to someone, and I went and saw this guy. And with that guy, I had such bizarre experiences, again some toxic experiences, like that with 2-3 guys, either through common friends I met another guy, him also. These were 2 guys who were, I trusted a little bit more because I didn't even know them from before. So even though I didn't know them from before, one was selected by my family, one was a common friend of some common friends. So the husband was his friend and the wife was my friend, and that's why I met him. And he looks a little bit very similar to the first guy I had dated, so that way that attraction potential again came up. But he was so manipulative. Both these guys were so manipulative, and the outlook in which they look at girls or at life or at children or at how they want to lead life were very toxic. And again, luckily it was the universe only who made me behave in such a way with these guys that the relationships broke down and it didn't continue onwards. Otherwise, because I was a little naive person, because family has selected this person, I could have ended up marrying him. But now I realize how much of a blessing it was that I didn't end up marrying this guy, because he was very bizarre. When I connected the dots with this interactions with this guy, I realized I dodged a bullet with this guy, because he wouldn't have been a good parent. The second guy, he might have been a good potential to be a good parent, but he's not a good spouse material because he likes to manipulate women. This is what he did with me. Even though we had common friends, he when our common friend had gone to India for a vacation, at that time we were hanging out and we became close. So sometimes in the night time I would hang out with him. So while I'm hanging out in the night time and this common friend calls from India, he doesn't want the common friend to know that I'm there with him. He told me to keep quiet. So now if someone is telling you to keep quiet in a relationship, that too with a common friend, I can understand if you're in a beginning stage of a relationship and you don't want to share it with your family or friends because you yourself are not sure what is going on. But this is a common friend who lives in the same city as us, who will in a few months, if we continue dating, come to anyways know that we are dating each other. So the fact that he told, and he was his best friend, so if he's not able to share, and he was also a good friend of mine, so if he's not able to share that he's dating me in front of such a good friend with whom we are interacting, at that point we were interacting once every couple of weeks because they had given birth, they had a new baby, and we were going to their houses sometimes for dinners and for interacting with the baby, and that's how I had met this guy. So and I had seen that he was good with the baby. So obviously if you see a guy who's good with the baby, who's also good friends with your friends, you'd start thinking maybe there is a potential. So because of that potential, I was hanging out with him and he said to be quiet. So that's when my red flag got raised. And even though my red flag got raised, I still didn't get convinced because emotionally he was also a very connecting person. So emotionally also he manipulated in such a way as if he's very he's interested in dating, because he would meet up for lunch occasionally, take me for dinner dates. But some of those dinner dates were also a little red flag zones. I'll talk later. But eventually what I realized was he had some American roommates, and one time in Christmas time, we spent time in Christmas. I realized he was just dating me because he wanted to show off to his friends that he can have a girlfriend. And at that time I was a hot looking girl, I was a size 4 girl. So size 4 girl is in demand for anyone to date, any average guy to date. So he wanted that good looking hot looking girl as a date, and that's why he was taking me around as a date. Whereas while he was doing that, he had applied to a different university, and he had mentioned that within a few months he will be leaving for a different university. And he kept telling me what this is where some guys and girls do the manipulation, and they think if I have just said the truth, that is more than enough. But he didn't say the complete truth. That's where he is cheating. That is also a form of cheating. That is also a form of betrayal that many guys and girls do, where he told me that after I leave I will never contact you, I will not be in touch with you. And I couldn't understand that, because see, if you and I are going around watching movies, going around having 1 hour 2 hour conversation with each other, eating dinner or lunch together. It was not every day we were doing it, but say you were doing it once a week, twice a week, you're hanging out, you're watching a movie, he's inviting me to a Christmas party with his friends, he's taking me on a his friend is having a music jamming session somewhere, and there he took me there. So he's doing all these things with you. You will think he's dating you and that he's also interested in you, and while having a conversation he's very polite with you, very nice with you, very kind with you. So you don't take that as a red flag, but the red flag was still there in the background, that not sharing with our common friend, also kind of boasting, the way he was like, strutting around in front of his friends that look, I have got this girlfriend now, that thing. Then he said certain strange things, and he kept saying this, that he will never call me after he leaves. I didn't understand, and I couldn't comprehend, because can you comprehend if someone is taking you out for dates? Most women and men will not comprehend. If you are okay with going on dinner dates, movie dates, or just hanging out in the home and watching a movie or eating together, all these things are couple things to do, right? So you will never imagine that someone, even if they're saying this to you outright to you, if you are emotionally connected to them. And he was also, one time he came to my house, and we weren't sleeping with each other or anything, but we ate dinner and all. And then in the night time he's like, I want to tuck you in like a baby. And I don't know why he did that. He was a very paternal person, I think. So he did that, and I was like, okay, fine. I didn't find it any weirder at that time. Now I'm like wondering, was it a red flag, was it not? I don't know. So and my dad has never tucked me in. I have never had that paternal. So there was a karmic lesson there also, that finding that guys can be this way was something I needed to learn. So that is the one good thing I liked about him, that when he wanted to tuck me in, he showed to me, and maybe that is why universe made him do that. He tucked me in like a baby, like the blanket. It was winter night, so blanket he put on me, like how you would really literally tuck a baby. And like that he did that, and I found it very touching. Now if someone does that to you, won't you think like, oh, this is such a nice guy, and I think he's interested in me, and that this has good relationship potential? All these things are going on in your mind, right? But the other red flag was, he showed me a poem he had written in Hindi. I showed him a poem I had written in English. We both didn't get each other's poem, and that itself is partly a red flag, because then it means your communication style and thinking styles are so different. You will not get each other for many aspects of your life. So maybe he also analyzed these things, and that's why he was saying that I'm not going to call you, but he was enjoying the experience of dating someone. But even then, what was going on in the background, which I found out after he left. He never picked up my phone call. He was right, telling the truth, that I will never pick up your call. Why? Because after a few months of him leaving and going to this other university, when my other friends, our common friends, had because they had a baby, they were living in India for a few months, and the husband had like taken 2 trips, once to go and drop his wife, and then once to go and once he went and picked up his wife. So when he picked up his wife, by then around 6-7 months had passed, and this guy had left for the different state for a couple of months. And while I cried that why isn't he picking up, at that time, there is Eat Pray Love. In Eat Pray Love, when Elizabeth Gilbert writes that for one of her boyfriend or husband's experience somewhere, one painful relationship experience, she had to let go of this guy, and she had been taught this technique. And I have not read this book until that is the year when I had read this book, and it's been almost like 13-14 years since I read this book. And in that book, so I don't remember the exact details of it, but there was a technique where she had to release the emotional connection to this guy, and she had told the universe that if this guy is meant to come, maybe he will come back, but otherwise I release him. Karmically, she was doing a karmic release with that guy. So that technique I had to put into place, because I was so emotionally attached, and I couldn't believe when he had said that he will never call me. So I did that karmic release. And only after doing that karmic release, when my friends had come back, I came to understand from them that he is already marrying someone else. And this thing was going on in the background. That was partly arranged, partly phone conversation based love marriage kind of a thing. And in that marriage, he was doing that in the background while he was dating me. So is this lying and cheating? If you're thinking of marrying someone, here you are going out on dates with someone, that's not a fair thing to do to a girl, right? You shouldn't be doing that. So that was my major manipulative lesson. But again, I am thankful that he did that, in the sense that he taught me at least that manipulative guys also exist. And it's not that I wasn't manipulated in my life in childhood, but this aspect of manipulation again came up with him because I had to learn something about manipulative people, right? And having a sheltered life, sometimes you don't get these experiences. So from these bad relationship choices and experiences only, you will get these manipulations, you will get the betrayal. Is it that I didn't cry? I cried a lot for this guy too. Even though I had only dated him for 1 or 2 months, I still cried. Even though in those 1 2 months I went out only on 5 6 dates with him, I still cried. Even though he had told me he will never contact me after he moves away, I still cried. In fact, we did have an intuitive connection too. So he had come briefly in Utah again for his some university related work, and he had come for a few days to visit these common friends, and the common friends stayed silent. They never told me that this guy was coming in the state. But there was something intuitively, I was like, why am I suddenly missing this guy? I don't understand. There's something that made me feel that he might be in this state again. And later on, when I talked to those common friends, they mentioned, that he had been here this week, but he told us not to contact you. That's why we didn't contact you. And I felt so betrayed. I cried even for the betrayal of these friends. For them, his friendship was more important than my friendship. And yeah, they didn't know that. Actually, they did know, because when he didn't pick up my phone when I found out that he was getting married, immediately he had given me something, like, because he was moving away, some furnitures and all he had distributed to different people. So one of his furniture, nice table for study table, he gave it to me. That study table, he had also given some small trinkets as a gift, as a memory. But I don't want a memory from someone's love. I'm not the kind of person who keeps memories of past love. Or even if I kept some memories of past love, with whom I was very deeply attached, but slowly over time I changed myself. So for this gift, I didn't want this gift, because I really felt betrayed that if you were marrying someone, you should have mentioned it, right? And think about this. It's lucky that I'm the girl who doesn't want to sleep, who knows the boundaries about not sleeping with a guy. But many guys will do this to a woman. They are not interested in the woman. They also know they're going to get married to someone else in a few months, but they don't mind sleeping with a woman. And that way they are betraying that other girl also, me also. So when he gave me all these gifts that he had given me, and I knew he's married or he's going to get married, I immediately returned all those gifts to these common friends and told them, give it to him. So once I said that, obviously they are not dumb people, so they understood that there might have been something going on between us. So that's where I felt betrayed, that why didn't they tell me when he was here. But on the other hand, at that time, even though I felt betrayed, now when I'm narrating the incident, it was a protective mechanism also from their side, right? Because what would I do meeting this guy if he's lied and cheated and betrayed me by not telling me he's marrying someone, right? So what is the point of me going and meeting him even if I miss him? And this also I had understood from that first relationship. If I hadn't had the first relationship, when this was a kind of sort of relationship, I didn't even classify him as a boyfriend, because he didn't look at me like a boyfriend, right? He was just hanging out with a girl, but he was giving it a boyfriend tag because that made him feel comfortable in strutting in front of other people that he can be boyfriend material also to someone. That's all he was doing. It was the ego boost relationship for him. So I didn't give him ever a boyfriend tag. And because I released him also immediately, right after I found out, within 5-6 months I released him. So emotionally I didn't get too much attached, unlike the first guy with whom I gave the boyfriend tag, with whom I was attached a lot emotionally. But because he had also cheated in that relationship in a different way. His cheating was more authentic, in the sense that when we were broken up, when I was not dating him, he was not dating me, and months had passed. In that time he dated someone. So I can't blame him if he has done that when I'm broken up with him, or after 2-3 continuous breakups he has done that. I can't blame him. Only thing I didn't like was, in that same time when my dad was giving me some relationship like say my family was sending me like this, there's this guy, they sent me two guys through family, friends and other people, that these people you should marry. So they had sent me phone numbers of two guys that talked to them in for marriage. And at the time I was broken up with the other boyfriend, so what will I do? I do want to get married, I am lonely, I am alone, so I will give naturally someone else the time to talk. But after I had spoken to these guys, and I had also met, I think, one of these guys, that time we again this other guy wanted to get back with me. So when he wanted to get back with me, I did also want to get back to him because we were emotionally connected. So while I had spoken to someone else, I told him that I had spoken to another guy, but or that my family is asking me to speak to other guys, something like that had happened. But he at that time, even though he had dated other girls, he never had the authenticity to tell me that he was doing it in that same time frame when I was doing it. So that's why finally I decided, if you can't even be authentic with me, can I have a good life with you as a partner, or you be a good partner to me? So both these guys in some direct and indirect ways taught me that in order to be authentic partners to each other, you have to be honest and authentic with each other. And the other guys who were honest and authentic, their problem is, if you are honest and authentic and if your mindset doesn't match with each other, people shouldn't take that personally. It just doesn't match, it doesn't fit, you should break up. But many people take it as a ego problem, that why is she telling no to me, or why should I not consider this person as a potential when I am feeling a certain way about them. Which is what these boys were teaching me, how to not get attached in relationships with men when they are not attached to you. Because there should be, in any good quality relationship, the level of attachment and depth in a relationship only develops well when both sides are equally emotionally connected to each other, both sides are equally wanting to have a depth filled life with each other, wanting a deep meaningful connection of love with each other, and are wanting to take it to a long term relationship, which one can take only when your mindset is matching in some way, life approach is matching in some way, life outlook is matching in some way. And if those things don't match up, even if you face lots of heartbreak, lots of crying, years of grieving for someone else, the saner choice, the more balancing choice, the more healthier choice is that how much ever grief they have given you, from that grief understand that you have a potential to love someone deeply. From that grief understand that they didn't have the potential to love you deeply, that's why they were okay to lie to you behind your back, or they were not authentic enough with you because they don't value the authenticity in a relationship. Learn all those things. Or their mindset is so messed up, their thinking process about living and families are so messed up. It's a saving if you don't connect with them or if you don't marry them. So God kept protecting me again and again from all relationship disasters like this, though at that time I didn't consider it as a protection. Why? Because when you're a 20-year-old girl or a 30-year-old girl, our Indian system says to a girl that you must marry before you hit your 30s, or at least get married by your early 30s, right? Everyone is pushing a girl to get married by the time they are 30, so that you can procreate and all these things. But what if God has a different purpose and plan for your life? That's why eventually I realized that it was all protection for many years from God, which I realize now in my 40s. I'm a 40-year-old person, 40 plus person. I'm realizing it now in my life that all these red flags, all these conflicts, they were also a protection from God, from not staying stuck with people who would have made me miserable and I would have made them miserable, or both. So I hope this was insightful, and if you have had hard, difficult relationships in your life, you need to understand that sometimes the purpose is that to understand from those relationships who you are, who is better suited to you, who is a better quality life partner to you, because in each difficult relationship you will find the beauty also of love in those relationships that you should preserve and continue in your next relationship. And in those difficult relationships were also some mistakes you have done and mistakes another person has done, and from the mistakes of the other person, mistakes meaning misfits, they were not fitting your criteria of a relationship. So in their context maybe it is not a mistake, or maybe it is also. See, if it is a mistake you have to learn from it, and if it is your mistake you have to change your mistake. If it is their mistake, they have to realize it and they have to change, but you can't tell them to change if they don't want to change, right? You may tell them this was the mistake, but if they want to change, then only they will change it, which is where the good or bad relationship happens. Say I and another person meet now, and we both made some mistakes. Now if he tells me authentically these mistakes are triggering me, I tell him authentically these mistakes are triggering me, we respect each other, we care for each other, we are considerate of each other's needs, then the relationship moves forward into a beautiful relationship. When both are not able to do to each other, or one is doing it but the other is not showing consideration, that is when relationship falls apart or becomes a abusive relationship. Now some people will still continue the abuse because they think this is my love, how can I betray them? You are thinking that, but you are betraying yourself, or even them, if you are in a relationship where you are allowing someone to just simply take advantage of you. You should not allow another person to take advantage of you. It should be such a relationship where you are having a balance, because when you're healthy, when you're relatively wealthy, at that time if someone is taking advantage of you, imagine what they will do when you're not healthy, because marriage is what? In sickness and in health. So when you are sick, at that time if they can't take care of you, when you are sick you will never meet a person, right? Most of the time when you are sick, very rarely will you meet someone who will want to marry you. When you're ugly, when you're down, when you're mentally sick, physically sick, anyway sick, people will not find you attractive, people will not want to marry you. But when you're in your healthiest, when you've attracted some good looking guys or good intellectual guys, or guys who are finding you attractive because you are also good looking and intellectual, and whatever they are looking for they are finding, whatever you are looking for you are finding at the superficial level. But that is not just enough. If someone seems like a nice guy, like this guy even tucked me in the bed and everything, but in the background what is he doing? He's thinking of marrying someone else. So is he a good guy? Outside he looks like a very nice guy, but is he a nice guy in the context of a relationship potential? No. He is not nice to his future wife also, and me also. He's disrespecting her and me both at the same time. He was doing that. So that's not a nice guy. Same way, if whatever was happening, that's why, was unfolding in such a way that if conflicts arise in a relationship where we couldn't manage to fix the conflicts, first realize that it was just not our job to fix some of those conflicts. It was supposed to be always a joint effort by both partners to fix it. If both partners are not fixing something that is causing conflict, causing distress, causing manipulation, whatever was going on in the relationship, if both aren't fair towards each other, both aren't authentically in love with each other, both aren't considerate of each other, that is a some level toxic relationship. Even if you had the most beautiful charming memories with them, it is not a true quality relationship. And if you want to move to a true quality relationship, first, if you crossed all these bad quality relationships, more and more, if you do the inner work, if you do the self reflection, if you understand and become self aware, if you understand and become aware of another person's nature, core nature, and the compatibility of your nature with another's nature, all these reflections will help you become a better partner for someone and them to be a better partner for you. And you also have to heal some childhood wounds, some core wounds, because until the time we realize where we are going wrong, we may keep repeating those toxic wounds that we have to heal. That's why it is important to understand first where we are going wrong. Also, when a relationship has had broken our hearts, it is also important to understand the good things we do and the bad things we do, and the good in the bad and bad in the good. About this also I'll post a different video because it's a complex topic. But if you have any questions about why, when you have breakups, why the breakups are also important, why if you are in a twin flame journey, if someone separated from you, or your life partner cheated you or betrayed you or manipulated you, in each of those experiences, what did you learn, what are you learning, what should you try to learn? These are all important things to learn in your life journey, so that you become a better quality twin flame, better quality whatever life purpose you will choose next in your life. Because all these things that I'm talking about, being authentic, being considerate, being kind, being respectful, all these things are important qualities also in your work life. So if you become better lover with someone in your love life, you will also be that good kind of a person in your work life. So find your value in all the good things that you do, and shed all the bad things that you can from your relationship patterns, so that you don't pick and choose the same toxic people. Just looking at good looks, if I choose someone, it is not working. Just looking at intellect, if I choose someone, it didn't work. Just looking at good looks and intellect also sometimes didn't work. Just looking at good looks, intellect, chosen by something, by my parents, also didn't work, because each of those areas had some problem or the other, about which I will again post in our next video. Because every new learning about a relationship brings you closer to getting to a right relationship for you and another. And every wrong thing that you've done in a relationship, if you don't realize that what I am doing that is causing these wrong relationships to continue or get attracted to me, then how will I go towards a better quality relationship? That door can't open if it's like, say, I like eating mangoes, but if I am given rotten mangoes and I keep eating rotten mangoes, is that a healthy thing for me? No. So when I'm eating mangoes, if I've been given a rotten mango, I should say no to the rotten mango. But until the rot is very in the superficially, if I can't see the rot, outside the mango looks good. Chilka, after I sliced it, then I found something was wrong. That is how those relationships are. You sliced a mango and found out that inside it is rotten. That's why you can't continue eating it. It was rotten for you, it was unhealthy for you, so you have to stop going towards finding those kind of mangoes. Now if you have eaten enough rotten mangoes where on the outside they look nice but inside they are rotten, you might develop a sixth sense of understanding that what is the rot inside. Just by looking at the mango energetically, you might get a energetic and intuitive knowledge about some very superficial signs maybe that the mango is showing when it is rotten. Not very evident immediately, but if you look carefully at the mango, you will see that it is rotten, or you will smell that it is rotten. So like that, if you don't develop that skill now of understanding if you have eaten 3 rotten mangoes and you understood now that this is how it smells, this is how it looks also at a superficial level, where it looks very similar to a healthy mango, but there is still a difference. Now then only you will be able to go and choose the healthy mango, right? Otherwise you will keep choosing the rotting mangoes if you don't develop that understanding that without getting into a relationship, that this is a relationship I should avoid. Does that make sense? And in all these developing intuitive sense, if you do inner work, if you do self-healing, if you take help of someone to do your healing, if you also start developing the skills of where the mango is rotten from their end, where it is rotten from my end, because if I am also a fruit for someone else, I might also be rotten in some ways. I have to change those inner beliefs, inner thoughts that make a relationship toxic from my end. That is also another part of the work. And only then, when you are also a good quality person, they are also a good quality person, then the chances of attracting a good quality person increases. And good quality doesn't come with simply niceness, simply having brains, simply having good looks. These are some aspects of getting more attention from the opposite gender, but they are not the main aspects of actually maintaining a good relationship. That comes from how you are with each other. because you, in someone else's eyes, you can be a difficult person. If someone wants only a sexual relationship, you will always be the evil one for them. They will not want you because they are not valuing a first emotional connection over sex. If that is that personality type, he has to go through sex related relationships. That is his journey. But I want to find emotional connection first. So if I know already that I want emotional connection first, but if I stay stuck with those men who want sexual connection first, can I ever go towards finding that man who wants the emotional connection first, who wants to have a greater purpose, higher purpose in life? Because twin flame journey is that, about higher purpose, greater purpose, not simply being stuck in the maya and illusions of life. So those illusions you have to break slowly about your life, which takes some time to develop. That's why you have some of these heartbreaks, for you to develop those skills inside you naturally. So if you have any questions, please drop a comment. It's a long video, but most of my videos are long, so I hope it was insightful to you. Thank you. Have a good day.